We've been saying this whole time that hell is coming. Now, hell is here.
It's something that's always present in a Diablo title, and we wanted to make sure that for Diablo 4, returning to hell was a special moment. We referenced the endgame cinematic with Prava and Inarius taking the fight to hell at the end of the game. We really wanted to capture that experience, that sensation of battling throngs of demons in hell. In the Infernal Hordes, they're going to go into this mode, battle waves of demons, and be able to kind of change the shape of the game experience as you play it.
Those of you who have joined us since base game and throughout the seasons will have noticed that we have this phenomenon in the world that's going on called hell tides. Some of you might have noticed that hell tides have been getting a lot worse lately.
And now hell is able to pierce the veil that's holding hell back from fully invading Sanctuary and starting to take root in Sanctuary. And we started by asking ourselves some questions. What is the state of Sanctuary right before the Vessel of Hatred happens? How has hell changed now that Mephisto isn't there anymore? What are the demons up to?
Where is Mephisto? Does he have anything to do with this? Or is this just hell rising of its own accord as the prophecy proclaimed?
And so we thought to ourselves, how can we make things even worse for the people in Sanctuary?
In this season, you'll very much get to dive into those mysteries with some unlikely allies and really get to the bottom of what's happening. So in this season, we play a lot with the notion of the enemy of my enemy is my friend. How far would you go to save Sanctuary, to save your world? What price would you pay? Would you sacrifice your soul for this? You're gonna meet a guy named Lochran, who at first seems sort of usual, but you're gonna quickly realize that something is off, that something is a little strange with this guy.
So Lochran and Estelle are your allies, and they're going to help you return to hell. Both of them are experts in demons, and they're going to use that knowledge to help you return to hell and become more powerful to be able to battle the Infernal Hordes.
The Infernal Hordes is a new endgame activity in Diablo 4. It's primarily a wave-based activity. You're going to be fighting wave after wave of demon forces in hell.
So if any of you have ever played wave-based gameplay before, you'll know that things escalate.
We've got meteor strikes and all sorts of things that try to keep you on your toes.
One thing the Infernal Hordes does differently is the notion of infernal offers.
And between each wave, you'll make a choice. You'll be granted an infernal offer, and by choosing one of 3 of these offers, you're going to change the game mode in some way, a positive and a negative.
You can imagine from the depths of hell, these hands rise out and offer you both a boon and a bane, a kiss and a curse.
And this is a temptation that the Fell Council is making to you. And in this temptation, you're offered more power, but that power comes at a cost. And so you get to choose, which temptations you're going to pursue during your infernal run, and then customize your experience from there. One of the guiding principles of this game mode is replay. It's an in-game mode that we want to make sure you're playing over and over again. So we really wanted to create a broad set of enemies for you to fight during this mode.
We've got many demons to choose from in the lexicon of Diablo's monster families, but we're also going to see some other foes you might not expect.
There are going to be certain types of enemies like goatmen who have been banished to hell that have now rallied to Mephisto and fight by his side. And even some unlucky souls that marched on hell from the Cathedral of Light have now been revived in hell and fight against you alongside the demons.
Basically, everything that hell has to throw at you, we're throwing it at you this season.
The Infernal Hordes has been built with multiplayer in mind, but multiplayer is not required. We want to make sure that solo players still have a very fun experience in the Infernal Hordes. Now that said, if you roll in with a party, you're going to have a lot of fun.
This game mode is going to appear in the Eternal and in the Seasonal realm, and that means that once the season is over, it's here to stay.
The Infernal Hordes is unlocked at World Tier 3, so really what you need to do to access it is earn your way up to World Tier 3 and then complete an Eternal quest line that takes you back to Hell and then unlocks the Infernal Hordes. For World Tier 1 and 2 players, we've built out a seasonal progression that'll help them become more powerful in order to be able to confront the Infernal Hordes. First is you can earn reputation, and that reputation applies to a reputation track that earns lots of really cool rewards that'll make you more powerful as you progress onto World Tier 3. The other thing we've built are micro-dungeons called Hell Breaches that offer a glimpse at the Infernal Hordes mechanics. and they give you a chance to learn the mechanics before you confront the Infernal Hordes at World Tier 3.
The final boss in this season is the Fell Council.
And the Fell Council is some familiar faces that you might recognize from Diablo 2.
These were priests of the Zakarum, holy men who were corrupted and basically became vessels of hatred in their own right.
The council members in Diablo 2 tried to help contain Mephisto in his soul stone. And of course, Mephisto being Mephisto, slowly but surely corrupted them. And eventually they had soul stones pierced into their hands and became super powerful. But eventually you overcame them and sent them to hell. Through the course of the story, resummoned them. They've been reborn, slightly new powers, but the same animosity toward you.
What's interesting about this boss encounter is there are 5 council members, but you're only going to fight 3 of them at once.
This allows us to then create many different flavors of the boss fight for the Fell Council. In fact, it's about 10 variations in all. And so every time you go into that council fight, there's a very good chance you're going to have a different fight than the last time you played it. We think it's going to offer a lot of replay for players. What we also introduced during these waves are opportunities for you to earn ether. Burning ether is the resource that you gather during the Infernal Hordes that you can then spend at the end of the activity.
There's going to be a fixed number of waves that you have to defeat, and once you've completed all those waves, then you'll face the Fell Council, defeat them, and collect your treasure.
So upon defeating the Fell Council, the spoils of hell will spawn, and then you consume your burning ether in opening those chests. Now, the trick is, when you are playing through these waves, that's your opportunity to earn as much ether as you can. Different events are going to spawn all throughout the waves, around the periphery of the arena, and it's your job to try and defeat as many of those events as possible to try and gather up all the ether you can. Really skilled players are going to be able to really maximize that ether so they get the biggest payout possible at the end after defeating the Fell Council.
So with this burning ether, you'll be able to get new uniques, you'll be able to get new legendaries, you'll be able to get rare materials, things you might have scoured the whole of Sanctuary for in previous seasons or in the base game, but now we offer it to you here, down in the depths of hell.
A lot of these new uniques and legendaries really build on top of this idea that they've been forged in hell. And so they're going to have unique looks that you can then make into cosmetics to apply wherever you like. They can also have unique VFX and sound effects to really create the sense that they were forged in hell. One particular one that I enjoy using a lot are boots. Boots, you say? Well, these boots not only have been forged in hell. Whenever you use a power with a cooldown, they shoot out a ring of fire that hits everyone around you. That's just one sample of the types of powers we're exploring.
So death in the Infernal Hordes is quite a big deal. You're returning to the realm of hatred where Mephisto was born. Like, this has to be a big deal.
In the Infernal Hordes, it's a lot like Nightmare Dungeons. You only get a fixed number of revives in order to be able to get to the end of your run. So at lower difficulties of the Infernal Hordes, you'll get a number of revives shared between your party, but at higher difficulty levels, the game is going to start taking away those revives, and that increases the stakes that you have.
If you die too much, you'll be ejected from the mode. In the Infernal Hordes, we created a lot of new ways for monsters to ambush the players, and so I'm pretty stoked to see how our players respond to these.
The seasonal quest line and the eternal quest line, they have lots of little surprises and twists and turns in them. And there's even some surprises we've buried deep within the Infernal Hordes that hopefully players will have a great time with.
Hello everyone, and welcome to our Season of the Infernal Hordes developer update stream. My name is Marcus Kretz. I'm a community manager here on the Diablo team, and today I'm joined by some very familiar faces. Adam and Adam, welcome to the stream.
Yeah, we did it. We took it over. We took it over. It's just Adam, and this is the Adam and Adam show. Now I don't even have to host. Yeah, no. It feels great.
Yeah, and for everyone curious in chat, Adam is not going anywhere. As you all know, there's a ton going on in Diablo. Yeah, Adam Fletcher isn't going
this
anywhere.
one, yes.
Adam Jackson,
I deal with this
Adam
one.
Fletcher. There's a ton going on in Diablo right now. We've had a ton of live streams. There's been so much going on, so it's just a lot easier to share the load amongst all the hosting live streams.
We just finished the Spiritborn live stream, so it's been a little crazy, and Marcus is here to help out. So you guys may see Marcus more here hosting some live streams in the future. But yeah, I'm not disappearing.
Today you're
Adam is
Colin
staying.
today.
Yeah.
Take over
exactly.
his stuff,
Today I get to pretend I'm Colin.
Ooh.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about that. Some
fun
big
task.
shoes to fill there. So yeah.
That is absolutely true. In terms of everything that's been going on in Diablo, we just had our Season of the Infernal Hordes PTR, and we've got a lot of learnings.
Yeah, but we also do have one additional person.
Of course we do. Mr. Dan Tangway from Albany, New York. Dan, welcome to the stream.
Hey, how's everyone doing?
Doing great.
Good to see you.
See, Dan's in like the Cathedral of Light. We're in like the Burning Hell. So, yeah. It's perfect.
It's hot over here.
Exactly.
It tracks. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us today, Dan. And the Season 5 PTR.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of learnings. This was our second PTR for Diablo 4. So we have a ton of feedback to get into, but we also have some notes from the community on the PTR overall and some learnings. So Adam, do you want to walk us through that?
Yeah, most definitely. This is now our second PTR that we had. We had one for Season 4 and, of course, one now for Season 5. And, we've learned a lot from these PTRs. PTRs are incredibly important. They're huge. They're really beneficial for the whole entire team here. And one thing we heard a lot of feedback, at least from the Season 5 PTR, is obviously as you're playing through a PTR, it's a non-final thing that you're playing. It's still very early on. There are going to be more bugs, more issues just present in the PTR because we are getting something out there a little bit earlier just so we can get feedback in on it. But one thing that I think we most definitely heard from the community is, hey, the tools within PTR at times haven't been the best or the most efficient for players that need to actually test the content that we actually do have. And so one thing that we did want to at least address and highlight and acknowledge is that we do plan on making the PTR experiences better in the future. We do plan on equipping more tools for players out there, so they're not having to sit there and grind out, maybe like all the new legendaries or uniques or something like it, especially in like Season 5, for example. We gave a character copy feature in this one. And then, of course, we had the boost feature, which came back from Season 4. And when you boosted your character, a new character, you would end up getting some of the new legendaries or uniques within Season 5. What happened, though, is that it wasn't all of them. And then we had players within Season 5 having to actually go out and spend their time that they probably could be testing other things, like trying to find those items. And obviously that's like not the most efficient thing to do. So we do want to, we hear everyone, we acknowledge it, we do want to make the PTR experience better. So I will say that like in future PTRs, and you'll see this gradually over the next couple PTRs, it won't be all of a sudden like things will be completely different, but I do expect like, and players should expect like that we will have better tools for them to properly test as we gradually go through PTRs in the future. And we appreciate everyone like letting us know. Like we most definitely hear you guys, and we most definitely want to make that experience better from that. But PTRs have been great. Huge thanks to everyone for jumping in and checking it out for sure. So
yeah, definitely. Yeah, that feedback is so important. So increasing how great these PTRs are is really, really important. And I know for the Season 5 PTR, one of the huge features that we had in there was the Infernal Hordes itself. So for everyone who didn't get a chance to jump into the PTR, Mr. Dan Tangway, can you kind of walk us through what the Infernal Hordes is and what players can expect?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll give you all a quick recap. So the Infernal Hordes is a wave-based activity with push your luck choices in between each of those waves. So imagine waves of monsters coming in, lots and lots of monsters, in fact. And you also have some events, mini events that you can also participate in. Now, in between those waves, you're going to be making what's called the Infernal Offer. And you're going to pick a boon or a bane, and that's going to change your gameplay for the rest of the run. So it allows you to customize what your Infernal run is going to be like. And so we probably see right here, we've got an Infernal Offer that comes up. So you're going to select one of those, and that will then change, of course, the rest of the run. Now, when you complete the required number of waves, then you're able to go confront the Fell Council, who you can see here. And the Fell Council, as you saw from the video that just came on right before this live stream, are former servants, well, actually current servants of Mephisto, that you defeated in Diablo 2 and have now returned, and you must fight them once more. And once you beat them, you're going to be able to spawn what's called the Spoils of Hell. And these are chests that contain a lot of great goodies. And so with that burning aether you've been collecting all through the course of the mode, you're able to choose what kind of spoils you want. You've got spoils of legendaries and uniques, and there's some absolutely great new uniques and legendaries in Season 5, and you can probably farm about half of them, over half of them from the Infernal Hordes. You're also able to spawn spoils of materials and buy into that, and that will get you gem shards, that will get you angel's breath, and of course that'll get you masterworking materials, which you absolutely need to complete your items journey. You can also cash out and get a bunch of gold, which, for those folks who are re-rolling their items in order to masterwork them or to enchant their items, is going to be hugely beneficial. And then finally, there's a special bonus chest at higher tiers where you can get a guaranteed roll on a greater affix item. And so since that's one of the main chases in the final steps of the end game, we wanted to make sure there was an opportunity for players to really get a little more lucky with it. So final thoughts on the Infernal Hordes. Remember that it unlocks at World Tier 3. You need an Infernal Compass in order to unlock it. And there's 8 levels of difficulty for it. And so, yeah, that's a quick recap.
Awesome. Thanks for walking us through, Dan. Super excited to jump in and try to grab some of those uniques. Now, I know considering the Infernal Hordes was such a big part of PTR, we did have a lot of community feedback with regards to getting into the mode and some of the pacing. So can you walk us through some of those learnings we had based off the PTR feedback?
Oh, absolutely. So there was a lot of feedback that came in, and so much so that we weren't able to address it all. But we did distill down some big trends and feedback that we were able to tackle. And so the first off is that we wanted to improve access to the Infernal Hordes. So yeah, it was just too hard to get into the mode regularly to test it. And folks who wanted to get into it very quickly couldn't get into it either. So we've pretty much overhauled access to the Infernal Hordes at this point. Compasses still exist, but the drop rates on those have been boosted quite a bit. We want you to earn around 4 or 5 compasses an hour so that you can do about 4 or 5 hour runs per hour. So you've got 50% chance to get them from item chests and hell tides, unless it's one of those item chests that costs 250 cinders, in which case that's 100% chance. I mean, you put in the time, we'll just give it to you. And then, Nightmare Dungeon and Whispers, there's about a 75% chance to get one from a dungeon complete there. Compass tiers at really high levels, we wanted to make sure drop naturally from high-tiered activities like Nightmare Dungeons and the Pit. And we've also given you a path to just crafting these outright with the Occultists with Sigil Power and Forgotten Souls. And then finally, it was a bug that the first compass that dropped from the Eternal Quest, it was actually a World Tier 3. And if you were playing World Tier 4, yeah, you had to switch back to actually get in the Infernal Hordes, and that didn't feel great. So we updated that as well. Moving along, the next big thing that we focused on was combat. The pacing of combat wasn't hitting our goals. And, we had done a lot of internal testing on it. And folks who weren't as in-game focused gave us a lot of feedback where oh, this is super intense, could we dial it back a little bit? So we did, but then we put it out on PTR and clearly y'all said, hey, no, we want more, so we're giving you more. The first thing that we did though is we fixed some bugs that actually had a really big impact on the experience. There was a boss health bug. Man, that is hard to say. Boss health bug that caused all the bosses to be super tanky. And at tier 8, there were some folks who were spending almost an hour's worth of time in the Infernal's Horde, and that's not what we wanted. So We fixed those bugs and retuned everything, so it's a much tighter experience at this point. Similarly, there was a bug where difficulty wasn't scaling appropriate in multiplayer, so we fixed that. And then some tuning things. So the pace of mini events are pretty much rapid fire at high tiers now, and so you're going to be spinning a lot of plates in this mode. The monster spawn rates have also been increased to, really capture that feeling of being overwhelmed. And then finally, we reduced the wave timer down to 60 seconds, which, just creates a much punchier experience for players, and of course, retuned everything. And then on top of that, we said, you know what, let's just make it easier for players to pick up Burning Aether to increase that pace. So the pets now pick up the Burning Aether as well. And that's not all. Now, of course, we're all playing this for the rewards, right? And so it was really important for us to improve rewards across the board. You spend time with the mode, you want to be rewarded appropriately, and we weren't hitting that mark in the PTR. So we raised the minimum amount of Burning Aether earned from any single run. First off, every single source of Aether got boosted by 1 Aether. And then we added Aether drops to the Fell Council, so that you're also getting, a lot of bang for your buck just by defeating the boss as well. And that actually scales per tier as well. Next up, we retuned all the costs of the Spoils of Hell. So, the greater equipment, that one with the greater affix in it, used to cost $250, now it only costs $60. Similarly, we retuned the spoils of equipment and the spoils of materials, so now they only cost 20 Aether a piece. And then finally, we retuned all the rewards that were inside, the chest as well. So, at your bare minimum level, when you first start playing the Infernal Hordes and you're not sure exactly how it works, we still want you to feel rewarded just for the time that you invested. And so the rewards at that bare minimum feel pretty good now. But, if you are spending a lot of time with it and you know how to optimize this mode, we wanted to make sure that, the rewards reflected that too, so that that higher, ceiling of rewards has been raised as well. So you're playing at tier 8, you are going to get significantly more rewards than you would at tier 1.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's
Nice.
quite a bit. That's a lot of stuff
Also,
to change.
I just want to call out, Dan, your shirt is amazing.
I was going to interrupt, but I didn't want to. I was
I'm like,
talking.
now I just
digging
want
it.
that shirt, and I'm very jealous that I don't actually own that shirt. So
Yeah,
I will message you after the stream to let me know where I can get this shirt.
Yeah, I think someone on the team made it. So I was like, I needed a new shirt for the live stream. So
That is her art, 100%.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, now we know.
Okay, now I know.
and it is totally awesome. I had to wear it. So
It is Aaron. I totally know.
Aaron,
All
will
right.
we will be touching base after the stream.
Yes.
Yeah, Dan, that's a ton of changes. It sounds like
Yeah.
we're really cranking up the intensity for the Infernal Hordes. Really, really cool to see. Super excited to jump into it. So I know for the Infernal Hordes, that's one part of the season that's coming, but there was a lot that players didn't get to experience in the PTR that will be coming with the season. So can you kind of share what's going to be new for players coming into Season 5?
yeah, absolutely. So the PTR was really focused on features that were on both the Eternal Realm and the Seasonal Realm. And we have a number of seasonal exclusive features that y'all haven't had a chance to play with yet. So we're going to tell you about them now. First up, we've got the seasonal progression. So you're going to see what we call the reputation system and some footage here in just a second. And the reputation system is something that we had in Season 4 and actually earlier in some events. And we've brought it back here because it serves as a great backbone for the season. And we've evolved it in some significant ways. So first off, how you earn reputation is a bit different now. It was really important for us in Season 5 to give you more of a give you more choice in how you wanted to earn your reputation. So previously in Season 4, you earn reputation through just playing Hell Tides, as you should, because we made a lot of improvements to Hell Tides in Season 4, but here we wanted to broaden it out a bit more. So you earn reputation in Season 5 by just defeating powerful servants of Hell, elites, Hellborn, champions, bosses, so on and so forth, right? And so that gives you a lot more choice to say, hey, I can earn reputation in Hell Tides, or I want to earn it in the Infernal Hordes. Or honestly, I want to take a break and do a stronghold. You'll get reputation there too. Another small tweak that we made that's pretty important is that when you pick up reputation, you actually get a small boost in XP as well. So as you're continually filling out your reputation track, you're starting to level up just a little more quickly than you did before. Now, another thing that you might have seen are these big green tiles in the reputation system, and those are seasonal quests. So we made it very clear that hitting certain tiers of your reputation system now unlock the seasonal quests, and it actually starts to weave the narrative through the progression a bit more, which we really like the feel of and we hope to build on in the future. And then finally, again, it's all about the rewards, right? So there's lots of great returning rewards in the reputation system. You're going to be able to earn uniques, specifically class-based uniques. They're going to help you figure out what you want your build to be early on in the season. You're also going to be able to get other powerful equipment, big drops of crafting materials, and of course, at the very end of the reputation track will be a resplendent spark that you can use to ultimately craft a mythic unique. Next up, we've got the seasonal quest line. I was teasing it up a little bit with the reputation system there. So the Season of the Infernal Hordes has a rather unique narrative flow because we have an Eternal quest line that introduces, a big new feature that takes you back to hell, right? And so we wanted to make sure that was available to everybody, not just seasonal players. And that also starts at World Tier 3. Now, for those of you who played the PTR have already seen it. That's the one that features Lokrin helping you to get back to hell and confront the Infernal Hordes. But we've developed an additional secondary, well, not really secondary, an additional seasonal quest line named of Lambs and Wolves, which we're kind of teasing right here. And new NPC named Estelle is guiding you to become more powerful before you join Lokrin to journey back to hell. Now, this one's going to be a little closer in tone to the Iron Wolves quest in Season 4, but it's going to be a bit more expansive than that. And like I said, it weaves in and out of the seasonal progression. So how do they relate to one another? Well, the seasonal quest line is exclusive to Season 5. And so you are able to get a really more complete picture of the story by playing both the seasonal quest line and the eternal quest line. You can kind of think of the seasonal quest line as almost like a prequel to you unlocking the Infernal Hordes. And but we also wanted to make sure that our eternal players don't get left out. This is an eternal mode that we're introducing after all with the Infernal Hordes. And so, the eternal quest line here, which is named Eyes of the Enemy, is going to be available for all players and won't go away after the season ends. So it's going to be there forever. So if you decide sometime down the road that you want to check out the Infernal Hordes and say, I don't know, Season 6, you can do that, right? And so, yeah, that's where we ended up with the quest lines this season. And then the final thing I want to introduce are the Hellbreach dungeons, which we've gotten a few teases of before, but we can go into more detail here. So these are all new micro dungeons to show that Hell has started taking root in Sanctuary. Now, since the Infernal Hordes is an endgame activity, World Tier 3+, we wanted to make sure we had some content that targeted our World Tier 1 and 2 players. And so you go into these, it's going to be a great source of reputation. It's going to be a great place to get some powerful items. And it's a pretty cool place to just kind of experience what the gameplay is going to be like down the road. Now, originally we had kind of patterned these off the Donheim tunnels, if y'all remember those. But, with the introduction of Helltide in Season 4, we had to change it up a little bit because I don't think that alone would have sufficed. And so what we did is we pulled in a lot of elements from the Infernal Hordes, and we're using this as an opportunity to introduce those elements. So you see right here, we've got a simple Infernal choice that shows, that basically says, okay, do I want my boss to be a little simpler or a little more difficult? And you get to choose. Hopefully the person playing chose the more difficult one. I didn't see, but you're going to be rewarded a lot more for taking that risk of making the boss more difficult. And you're going to be earning Burning Aether, and at the end there are going to be some spoils that you can spend on. And like I said, you'll get some really powerful gear that should help you on your journey toward encountering the Infernal Hordes. So if you want more details on these, I recommend that you check out our blog that came out 2 days ago. And yeah, thank you.
Dan, that's awesome. I got to say, chat got pretty excited when you mentioned domain tunnels. They kind of blew up there. So definitely a fan favorite.
Everyone remembers the dopamine tunnels. Yeah.
Right.
And it's great that there's now like opportunities for players within like World Tier 1 and 2 to actually be able to have other options of leveling up. And with these new hell breaches,
it's a good way to
for people
tease in the new content.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then you get into those Infernal Hordes in World Tier 3 and off away you go.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Dan, thanks so much for joining us. As Dan had mentioned, we did publish the Season of the Infernal Hordes blog a little bit earlier this week. We are going to have patch notes that will publish following the stream. So for any details we reveal across the stream, you can check those out for more information. Yep. Dan's going to join us towards the end of the stream for our Q&A. So if you have any questions, please drop those in Twitch chat and we'll be pulling them to get into those towards the end of the stream. So we just touched on a ton of stuff that's coming in Season of the Infernal Hordes itself, but based off the PTR, we also have a ton of changes coming across Sanctuary.
Yes.
And to walk us through from the other end of the stream, Mr. Adam Fletcher.
I get to pretend like I'm the person on the panel. I'm gonna.
You designed and did all of this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This was
put in all the
me.
changes.
Yeah, we have a fantastic design team here, and I am gonna bring in my inner Colin Finer to talk about some stuff. But yes, as Marcus mentioned, there's a lot of changes. A lot of the stuff that we actually did talk about in the blog, and some of the stuff that people heard from PTR. But there have been changes even since PTR.
Yep.
And we have a few new things in here that will also squeak in here as we're talking about it. But one big topic I know that everyone brought up after PTR, and that we even brought up even during our PTR stream, was Helltide specifically. One big topic within Helltides was Baneful Hearts. If you guys remember back during the PTR stream, we talked about how Season 4, everyone had a plethora of Baneful Hearts. I mean, it felt like everyone was always carrying about 100 to 150 at any given time, and you could deposit as many into your heart's desire and still always have that same amount. We wanted Baneful Hearts to feel a little bit more special. And so during the PTR, we actually did take the number down in terms of how many you would be able to earn. We did hear everyone's feedback. People were like, that feels kind of crappy. So we most definitely readjusted the drop rate of Baneful Hearts to really kind of close that gap in between Season 4 and Season 5 PTR. We wanted to make sure that was, it feels better. Like you won't have 150 on you at all times, most likely, but you still have plenty now to be able to summon the Maiden as well. So some of the changes that we have coming up for Baneful Hearts and the rates that will help with this is we're bumping up the drop rates off of chests within Helltide specifically. Players will also be able to get a guaranteed heart drop off of Helltide commanders now. And then one big thing is within world bosses, we actually have an image of like where you'll be able to now get your hard drop rates guaranteed, is world bosses. Sometimes world bosses actually do spawn within a Helltide zone, and we thought it would be kind of cool that, hey, you killed the world boss there and a Helltide happened to be present in that specific zone where the world boss is. Now you'll just get a guaranteed 3 within that world boss kill, which is kind of nice. So
that's super cool.
We're also bumping up the drop chance to like local events, mastery chests within Helltide, and of course Harbingers within it as well. And then one big change that we're doing within this as well is the Blood Maiden within World Tier 1 and 2 in Season 4 and even Season 5 PTR, you would have to deposit 3 hearts, just like World Tier 3 and World Tier 4. We're actually tweaking that down to just 2, so for World Tier 1 and 2. So there'll be one less like altar pedestal for you to deposit a heart for to summon the Blood Maiden within World Tier 1 and 2, which should help out with,
It just makes your farming a little bit quicker in the early levels.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel like you're needing to put in that many for those earlier levels.
That much easier to chain a ton of Blood Maidens back to back to back.
Exactly, yeah. So next thing we did want to talk about is within Helltides as Tortured Gifts, another change for World Tier 1 and 2, there'll be less cinders required to open up the Tortured Gift chest within World Tier 1 and 2, so it's dropping from 100 to 75 specifically. And then this is something we talked about in the last stream where it was like really difficult for players to actually kind of go through a Helltide and complete a full-on Tree of Whispers progression line within Helltide. So now you'll actually be able to earn all 10 Grim Favors within a Helltide for sure when it's in one subzone, and actually deposit that within the Tree of Whispers and get the Whisper cache out of it. I know sometimes it would take sometimes 2 Helltides to actually do it, or you would have to leave the Helltide and go to a non-Helltide zone to kind of finish it off and stuff. And so we wanted to make sure that was more efficient, specifically within Helltides. And then this was a big thing.
Big one.
So, we talked about during the Season 5 PTR stream that we were, that Profane Mind Cages were a Season 4 mechanic. It was
Well,
only
they were,
within that.
technically.
Yeah. And so it was removed from Season 5. Heard the feedback, and people were like, wow, we really miss Mind Cages. Bring them back. What's going on? So we did bring them back, and we brought them back in a cooler form. So now you can actually stack up. So one, Profane Mind Cages are coming back for Season 5. You can actually stack these now up to 3x in Season 5. This is seasonal only, so this is only on the seasonal realm specifically. But now stacking up to 3x does actually boost up monster
Better
levels
rewards, better
pretty
XP,
significant.
better everything,
Yeah, so you'll end up, you could knock monster levels up, 30 levels if you wanted to, and you will benefit or maybe suffer.
Suffer quite a lot, yeah.
But it does give players the option now to use that, and so Profane Mind Cages are back and in a kind of a cooler form for Season 5, which is really cool, and we really appreciate the feedback we heard from players regarding Helltides on that. Next, overall, just general game updates that we do have. One big thing that we're doing is we are boosting legendary drop rates off of really pretty much almost most content, like Helltides, Nightmare Dungeons, Infernal Hordes, for any monster that is level 100 or higher. So you'll be able to see and just obtain more legendaries that way, less rares, things like that. Separately, enchanting, one big thing we heard is, people were somewhat blocked a little bit with Angel's Breath. And so we did remove Angel's Breath as a cost towards enchanting. It's no longer required. We've actually now kind of just swapped this over to the respective legendary salvage. So for instance, armor, it would be Coiling Wards, weapons, Baleful Fragments, and then jewelry, Abstruse Sigils. Tongue twister there.
Abstruse Sigils.
Abstruse Sigils. But you now have the ability of being able to do enchanting. Just note that, of course, gold costs are still associated with enchanting, but now it's a little bit, removing a little bit of that friction with the Angel's Breath requirement. And then this is something that we had talked about beforehand, which is just crowd control. Overall, within Season 5 is going to be a lot better. I know crowd control can be sometimes painful, or either knocked down, or
here knocked down and frozen for a million years, and crying, and then dying horribly.
And so CC duration has been essentially just pretty much reduced across the board to 1.5 seconds max. And then one cool feature is you can also spam potions now while you're CC'd. Really good for people in hardcore, or maybe it's it creates more desperate moments of I'm still dying, no matter what. But you now have the ability of being able to spam potions specifically if you are CC'd, which is really nice. We were talking about charging
bloated corpse fiends when they all stun you and they do the poison AoE. Yeah.
Exactly.
As a keyboard slammer myself, thank you. For
yes, exactly.
For this change.
Next update we have is world bosses. So. Funny enough, this actually fell into Season 5 PTR, but then we forgot to actually put it in Season 5 PTR notes. And we actually forgot to actually mention it. We got a lot of reports of people going hey, why are world bosses tankier and harder to kill?
They actually fight back now. Wait, what?
It's what's going on? So they actually had a feature called Resilience on there. Essentially, Resilience normalizes damage across all world content. So it's shared world content. So if a bunch of people are all coming into a world boss, you should expect to find that the world bosses will be a little bit more tankier, a little bit longer in terms of the experience that you're having as you're fighting against them. and less, like, hey, I blinked and it's gone.
Yeah. Oh, sweet. The boss was here for 3 seconds. Nice.
Yeah, exactly.
3, man.
So,
Mine, they barely even spawn in. I don't know about
it
you.
was actually present in PTR, and we actually got a lot of people that were going like, hey, I think this is a bug, and it actually wasn't a bug. It was just something we forgot. We forgot to actually mention in the patch notes, so that is our bad, but we do want to make sure that everyone's aware that world bosses now have a feature called Resilience, and that will end up helping out with those encounters specifically. Separately for bosses, pit boss damage has been reduced pretty much across the board. And then one big thing that we did want to call out is we got a lot of feedback within season 4 and of course the PTR for season 5. We saw some people address the changes that we were having there, but pit bosses had this tendency within season 4 to have like very sharp damage, where it would scale up really hard, and there were times where you would run into a specific pit boss, and you could potentially just get one shot based off of like the shadow boss, that would
the
appear,
extra ones coming in would just come, one-shot you and laugh as they left and you died.
Yeah, so now there is a feature within Season 5 where those Shadow Pit boss affixes will appear, and they'll actually leave kind of a stacking debuff onto players now. So, and it can go up to 3 times, and then obviously when it gets to the max, you have a very good chance of getting heavily punished for taking up to 3 debuffs from that end. This is really to allow a little bit more flexibility for players, based off of the feedback we heard regarding a lot of the one-shots and things like that. You now have the ability of being able to, take a couple of these debuffs and maybe not completely get punished from that. It's less about the perfection kind of involved, but more so being a little bit more forgiving in some of those opportunities. Now, if you are a person that just face tanks things and goes in and immediately takes 3 debuffs, you're probably still gonna learn that that damage is still going to be very sharp with the 3 debuffs. So, but it is something to help out in regards to that.
To be clear, how that debuff works is every time that you get hit with one of those shadow boss mechanics, you'll take the debuff, and it increases all of your damage taken. So the regular boss is going to hit you harder, and the shadow bosses are going to hit you harder too.
Exactly.
So you just don't want that to ramp up too much, because then everything is going to be more punishing.
Yeah,
exactly.
So there's a few people already asking about those debuffs in chat. So
yeah, it just increases all your damage taken. So basically, you get some freebies of getting hit by them. You really don't want to, but then after that, you got to watch out, because then it's about as hard as Season 4 was.
Exactly. So. And then another big thing, so this was something that was actually not present in the PTR, but it's something that we've heard a lot of feedback about, and actually a ton of feedback about. And this is group play in pits. In Season 4, the way that it worked was if you were in the pit and you were the party leader, and you had 3 friends that joined along, you would essentially get through the pit, you would get all the masterworking materials, for yourself, 100% of them, and then everyone else around that joined you would only get about 50%. And it felt pretty punishing for people to really kind of join up with friends and run through pits. And we heard a lot of feedback of hey, it'd be great if I'm just joining my friend, we can all just get 100% of the pit material rewards. And so that is being tweaked for Season 5. Now the whole entire party itself will end up receiving 100% of the materials that you end up receiving at the end of the pit. So we appreciate the feedback. Thank you guys for letting us know. And this is something that wasn't in PTR but will be for Season 5. Next up, we have endgame bosses. So this is something, of course, we talked about during the PTR, and we do want to highlight again because I think this is amazing and will save a whole lot of time.
So nice.
You can now resummon endgame bosses immediately after you end up killing them. So as you're going through the different boss ladders and stuff, you can just resummon. The altar will reappear, as you can see in the footage, and throw in the mats, and bam. Again, you're fighting Duriel, which is really nice. No more exiting the dungeon, resetting the dungeon, running back, and then having to do it over again. This should save up a whole lot of time. This should help a whole lot with farming as well, specifically for gear. And you'll be hearing a lot about all this new gear from Adam here in a second. But there were some additional changes as well to some of the endgame bosses that we do have. For instance, the first one we're going to talk about is the Beast in Ice. The Beast in Ice, of course, required a sigil to actually summon, or to actually create the dungeon to go in to fight the Beast and Ice. There's no longer a sigil that will be required. And also the Beast and Ice is now way closer to the dungeon. It's going to be a short dungeon crawl similar to the other endgame bosses, so you're not having to, go through a lengthy dungeon.
A whole
just
dungeon
for that.
just to get to the boss. Yeah.
Likewise, no more sigil dust will be required for summoning the Beast and Ice. And then, of course, we thought about internal players in this situation because some of them have actually crafted a bunch of sigils. And now, since sigils are no longer required, you can still use those leftover sigils to immediately resummon the Beast and Ice without needing the mats that are still required for the Beast and Ice. So it's kind of a nice benefit to them. And then, of course, Varshan also got some updates. Varshan required a bunch of different body parts, and now Varshan just requires malignant hearts. And of course, we thought about eternal players in this specific instance. Eternal players can convert their old body parts to hearts by going to the alchemist. That's a magical alchemist. But if you ever need a spare heart, you just go to an alchemist. That's just how it works.
Swap it out.
Yeah, that's just how it works. But yeah, some changes coming to that. And then separately, endgame bosses, for endgame bosses, the boss ladder bosses, they won't be dropping rare items anymore. They're actually just going to drop additional gold, and of course, you'll have your opportunity of getting legendaries and uniques and mythic uniques from them. So, but now we just remove the rare item drops from them, so it takes up like less of the drop chances that you could get in terms of their specific tables. And then on tormented bosses now drop 5 times as many boss mats as before. And of course, all tormented bosses have a better chance of dropping a mythic unique. So we are boosting up the mythic unique drop. There's actually specifics on all this stuff in the patch notes that people can read afterwards. And we've also reduced the Stygian stone cost for the tormented bosses. Before it was 2. And now it's dropping to 1, so it should help out with players wanting to experiment or try out some of the more difficult endgame bosses that are available, which are their tormented versions. And then one big thing that is happening, and this is something that was kind of mentioned in the blog, but and people will see more specifics in the patch notes. Experience is changing in terms of like the XP bonus from killing higher level monsters. It's no longer capped in. I believe it's now. Well, it's. I think
it used to be 10 levels higher.
Actually,
you didn't get more.
It's so capped, shall I say? It's capped at 30 levels. That's actually incorrect on the slide, but. It used to be 10 levels. It's now 30 levels,
Nice.
and that's across all world tiers. So if you have, for example, if you are a level 50 character and you kill a level 80 monster in Season 4, you would only get level 60 experience.
Credit, and
now you'll get up to that level 80 experience. So it should help out a lot. If you are willing to go through more challenging content, bam, you get more XP for it. So which is really cool. And it's also really nice that because it plays really well into the stacking profane mind cages, which are now available within Helltide, because that can actually also increase monster level by 30 levels as well. So it's kind of a cool little add-on, you could say, from there.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Pretty sweet.
Yeah, I think that's it for general game updates. Yeah.
Holy smokes, already a lot
Oh my god.
Yeah,
That's
Holy moly.
as I talked about a bunch.
Yeah.
It's all in the patch notes. You guys will see the patch notes afterwards. Yeah.
Yeah, really amazing to have all those changes. Chat was absolutely lighting up with regards to all the changes to the pit, and of course, even though we've shown the boss summoning reset again, they got just as excited. So
awesome to see, and we really appreciate everyone's feedback during PTR and hearing, especially about the Helltide stuff. And we totally hear you guys, and we want to make sure that people got to experience, still enjoy Helltide to the fullest.
Yeah.
You know what I mean.
Exactly. No, it's really cool to see those.
Too much.
Yeah, those profane mind cages coming back. But yeah, Adam, thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
And now, everyone, hope you're comfortable because we got a ton to go over with regards to updates, uniques, some bugs fixes, and a ton of class balance
updates,
changes. Who better to walk us through Mr. Adam Jackson?
Yeah, let's do it. So we got a lot to talk about today. I'll try and go as quickly as possible. Firstly, thank you all for your feedback and comments. We got a lot of class-related feedback on the PTR, a lot of balanced feedback, a lot of just how it feels to play things. And we actually reacted pretty heavily and did a lot of changes between PTR and Season 5 launch. some of which I think some people know, and some things are going to be new for you today. So really, yeah, we have a lot of things that changed. In many ways, honestly, it's going to feel like almost from a balance perspective and kind of a what your class can do in your journey, it's going to feel almost like a very different game compared to what you experienced on the PTR. I'm going to go through a lot of like the systemic reasons why, and then some specific things that we did to every class, as well as, of course, updating all of our uniques and kind of the impact that you can expect from that. So lots to talk about. So first, we're going to be talking about bug fixes. We've got quite a few to go through that I think are pretty notable. Again, we're going to be doing the class balance updates after that, and then the unique changes. So those will be the three things I'm going to be covering today. So firstly, as usual, we're going to be publishing the patch notes right after this, so you can read all of them. I'm not going to cover everything today, but just some of the more notable ones. So first is one on the Necromancer that we've heard about for a while now. It's a Shielding Storm. This is a legendary that when your Bone Storm damages enemies, you get a barrier equal to your max life. It used to be based on your base life instead of your max life, and now we finally fixed that. To be clear, this is a pretty huge buff. We may have to reevaluate the power of this a little later, but we're going to see how it goes. But now that barrier is going to be very significant as you're hitting enemies with this aspect. Next, we got a couple on the Barbarian. The first one is the Twister Glyph. This is a Paragon node glyph. It wasn't properly giving you bonus multiplicative damage when casting Dust Devils, so Dust Devil builds will be a little bit stronger. We also fixed an issue with the Tempering Earthquake duration. Beforehand, there was a bug where it was actually lowering the DPS of Earthquake because it was increased the duration, and then your DPS would go down, so we fixed that, so it's now actually just going to make you hit harder. Next one, I'm going to call it one of our content creators, Woody Joe. Here, this is why we have PTR. He found a neat little oversight that we had with a passive called Trick Attacks, and I'm actually going to go over this in a little bit of detail because its fix will be coming a little later.
3 seems completely
39 ranks of offensive passive is pretty good. So a little bit of background to this. Basically, we changed how this passive Trick Attacks, what it does. It went from something that was more utility-based, where it was around CC, and we turned it into damage. But we didn't update under the hood for like tempering and where it can appear from a utility to a damage recipe of where it would show up. And so it was appearing on utility, which is a lot more common than damage, and then you could get it to silly ranks like this. So to fix this, right now, or on the PTR, I should say, it was on this recipe called Alchemist Control, where it was with Chilling Weight and Shadow Crash, which are also like CC-based passives. For Season 5 launch, we're actually going to be disabling this recipe from dropping. You won't be able to see it for a patch while we fix this bug. And what we're going to do is, once we re-enable the Alchemist Control recipe to drop, Trick Attacks won't be on here anymore. What we're actually going to be doing is we're going to be taking Flurry Size from another recipe called Rogue Innovation here. We're going to be moving Flurry Size, which is more of a utility-based thing, and moving that over to Alchemist Control, and then just removing Trick Attacks from Alchemist Control. So the net effect of this will be that now both recipes will have, both tempering recipes will have 3 different options of what you can have there, and Rogue Innovation will actually have a little bit of a buff here too, because instead of having 4 things to roll for your tempers, we're only going to have 3. So it'll be a little bit easier to get what you want. Next, we're going to be talking about some generic class balance updates. So kind of to set you up, a high-level theme that we're going to see in our feedback from PTR was Barbarians are really, really good, and every other class is kind of a little bit weak, it feels like, compared to Barbarians. So we did a lot of things to address this. So first, I want to go into detail a little bit of how we feel about Barbarians and where they're at and what we want to do. We feel like one of the bigger reasons why Barbarians are so strong is that they kind of have 2 class mechanics compared to other classes, right? They have the expertise system, which is like a normal class mechanic where, they have this fantasy of leveling up their weapons and then they get bonuses. But then they also get more item slots compared to other classes, so they get more access to more legendary powers. As far as how we tackle this, we don't want our only solution to be to nerf Barbarians, right? Like, a common thing that we hear is like, hey, they have more item slots, maybe you should just get rid of the item slots so that everybody has parity, right? Like, that is a way to make parity, but, it takes away from their theme of being a master of weapons, and it's not very fun. So that's not the only thing that we want to do in this situation. The other thing is that we want to keep their class identity, right? Another common suggestion we hear is, well, just give all the other classes more item slots so that they're the same as Barbarian, right? And similarly, kind of like how Necromancers have minions, we don't want to give every class minions just because, they don't have access to the cool thing that Necromancers do. We don't want to just give every class more slots so that they're exactly the same as Barbarian. We want to really try and keep what makes them feel special as a special thing and find other ways to kind of bring parity to the classes. So here's kind of our strategy of what we're thinking of with Barbarians. We have a few different things that we're going to be doing. One is we're actually going to be adjusting how much damage all the classes get from their core stat, and this is going to bring other classes up to the level of Barbarian. I'm going to be going over that in a little bit. We are going to be reducing the power of Barbarians as part of our solution, but again, I want to point out it's not the only thing that we want to do. And then we also want to target the other class mechanics and really bring them up to the level of the Barbarian effectively having too, and making the other classes feel cool in the way that makes them thematic and awesome. We already actually experimented with this in Season 4. This was an intentional thing that we did, and we wanted to see how it went with the Necromancer. If you remember, we buffed minions very heavily, and we also buffed the Book of the Dead, their class mechanic, very heavily. Not just numbers, but also in the cool factor, right? You have mechanics like, your minions can throw bone spears, or, your golem can do bone spikes everywhere and make enemies vulnerable. We want to do this kind of treatment to the other class mechanics. Just to be clear, we're going to be probably doing this after the Vessel of Hatred expansion launches, so it'll be a little bit. So we are doing some things in the meantime to catch them up, but you can expect in the future we're going to be doing kind of a big overhaul to the other classes similarly to the Book of the Dead, and so their cool factor and their power level is going to be going up. So let's talk about that core stat update that I talked about previously. So basically what we're doing here is we're going to be changing the amount of damage that every class gets from their core stat. So if you didn't know, on live right now, when you log into the game, you get about 1% more damage per 10 stat of your class. So as an example, I don't know, pick one, the Sorceress, with Intelligence, you would have 10 int, and then you would get 1% more damage. If you had 100 int, you'd have 10% more damage, and so on. So now it's going to actually depend on the class what that ratio is of how much damage you get per your core stat. So the Barbarian is going to be staying exactly the same, 1% more damage per 10 strength. The Rogue is going to get a little bit of a buff here because they do have a little bit more slots compared to other classes, so they're going to be getting 1% more damage per 9 dex. And then the other 3 classes, the Sorceress, Druid, and Necromancer, are going to be getting 1% more damage per 8 core stat. So, without doing a lot of math, the TLDR here is Barbarians are staying the same, Rogues are going to get a bit of a bump, a bit of a buff, and the other 3 classes are going to get even more damage. So as you get that core stat, which you get very commonly, in Gear and Paragon and other places, you're just going to be doing more damage. It's just a passive way that we're going to be catching up the classes stat-wise. So next, let's move on to kind of our class updates. So I'm going to be going through all the different classes and talking about kind of what our updates are going to be for them. Some of the things you can expect that are different from PTR to launch. So Barbarian, currently Barbarians, in addition to having more item slots, have some of the best key passives in the game, like in Season 4 and on Live. One of the very main ways that we're targeting bringing them down is reducing the power level so that really their key passives are comparable to other classes. We on the team felt like, they already have all these other things that are really strong going for them. They don't need like overly statted, way powerful key passives that do like, over 100% multiplicative damage when the other classes are doing way less. So you did see that on the PTR. We did see a lot of feedback on like, why are we bringing down Walking Arsenal to have parity when, it wasn't even really meta compared to the other key passives. And I just kind of wanted to bring some light to this of how we think about it. The reason why we brought Walking Arsenal to be level with the other ones when we brought them to be equal to other classes is that, we want all the key passes on Barbarian to have parity with each other. If we just brought down the other key passes that were way overperforming and didn't bring Walking Arsenal down to be even with them, then really Walking Arsenal is just going to be the best mandatory pick, and every Barbarian build is going to have to interact with this system. And we really wanted them to be equal with each other so that, there's actually a choice when you get to your key passive of which one to take. So I just wanted to clarify that of, what our thinking was there. But, it's not all doom and gloom for Barbarians. We did hear feedback of like, man, it really sucks. I understand that they're being brought down and it's fair, but, we want to have some things to look forward to. So we did introduce a number of buffs coming in between PTR and Live so that you have some things to look forward to and new build paths or your, underperforming builds are not being brought down as well. So I'm going to give a couple of examples here. One is Hammer of the Ancients. We increased its damage baseline by 10%. And we also adjusted the of Ancestral Force legendary. One of the troubling things that this build has problems with is like single target damage against bosses and things. It does really good in AoE and brings down enemies, but its single target's a little bit lacking. So we're upgrading this legendary power, so now it's going to be doing more damage against bosses, so it'll kind of help you with that single target issue. Another one is Upheaval. Upheaval builds can rejoice, and also a little bit of a preview of kind of how we're changing uniques, which I'll be going over a lot more later. But we're increasing Upheaval damage by about 15%, and we also rounded out Hellhammer now. It's quite a bit more powerful. I can point out a bunch of things here of how it's better, but you can see it gives more skill ranks of Upheaval compared to before. The damage of its burning on the ground, just baseline went up. It also has scaling on the burning damage. So, before the burning damage wasn't really a meaningful part of the unique. One of the things you're going to see with uniques across the board is that they're going to be a lot more about the thematic of what the unique is, and that's where their power is going to be. So here, the burning ground actually will scale with your strength at a pretty significant degree. So, it'll actually be doing meaningful damage, hopefully. You can also see its inherent affix now is damage to burning enemies. Instead of overpower damage, so it's going with that theme of Hellhammer burning the ground. It's also giving you skill ranks of Wall Up, a passive, so that's more multiplicative damage. You also get Upheaval size, so now your burning ground and your Upheaval is going to be bigger. So there's just all kinds of new things going on. It's going to be a lot cooler, a lot more powerful, and hopefully a lot more fun.
Yeah, Hellhammer looks absolutely insane.
Yeah, and 300 strength also, by the way, no big deal.
300 strength,
or 360 strength, no big deal.
No big deal.
It's going to be pretty good. So next, the Sorceress. We got a whole lot of feedback that, the Sorceress isn't powerful enough compared to other classes.
We got so much. I'm going to stop us right here. We got so much feedback about the Sorceress.
Just a little bit. And the Druid.
And the Druid.
And the other
and the Necromancer. I will just note, we hear you guys. We absolutely do.
Yeah.
Okay, now you may continue.
Okay. So, for the Sorceress specifically, we heard feedback that they're not powerful enough. So we did quite a few things to address it. Firstly, they've got a lot of large buffs to their uniques. I would say even more than other classes. Your uniques are going to feel really good, is the hope, and I think we've hit it. And I'll be going over some of them a little bit later. We also buffed all of their core and mastery skills by about 15 to 20%. So just baseline. Remember, this is in addition to the core stat buff. All of your core and mastery skills are also getting buffed baseline by a pretty significant degree. So you're just going to hit harder. We also did multiple defensive buffs. We heard a lot of feedback that they have trouble surviving in situations that the other classes could kind of get away with. These are some examples. We did more than this, but Ice Armor, your base shield amount is going up from 40% to 56% of your max life. Snow Veiled aspect, this one was updated from PTR to launch. So on PTR, it was that your Ice Armor gave you Unstoppable and gave you armor. And on launch, you're still going to get Unstoppable, but you're going to get damage reduction, which, anyone who knows how the defenses within this game work is way more significant than just getting armor.
Yeah, when you hit that armor cap, it's kind of like...
Yeah, you just want to gobble up DR like Pac-Man as much as you can get, the more the better, and this is going to give you...
Yeah, the DR is going to be huge. Very big.
Also, we did multiple buffs to the Paragon board. Again, this is not covering everything, but one of the things is that, we put a lot of caps to make sure that some Paragon nodes just didn't go out of control compared to everything else, but we heard feedback that, those caps were a little bit too punishing, so we increased them. An example here is Burning Instinct, where, on PTR, it capped at 40% more multiplicative damage, and we increased that up to 80%. So now your burning damage, that's based on your crit strike multiplier, is going to be going up. Your total amount is going to go up, but then also the rate that you get it. It used to be 1% per 50 int, now it's 1% per 20 int. So you're going to be getting more efficient bang for your buck for your int and a total cap that's much higher. So Druid, similar to Sorceress, surprise, surprise, got a lot of feedback that it's not powerful enough compared to the Barbarian or other classes. So we've got a lot of multiple quality of life and damage buffs coming in. Again, these are just some examples. Also, you got to remember the uniques are going to be coming in as well. Boulder damage went up. We increased the damage across the board of their core skills mostly, and we missed boulders, so we're increasing their damage a bit. We also got a lot of feedback that we came out with this really cool unique for Cataclysm that made the lightning bolts smart and target enemies. And then a lot of people were like, "Hey, why does it have to get a unique to make my skill be smart?" And we agreed, so we just made the skill smart baseline. So now those lightning bolts from the ultimate will just target enemies. Perfect Storm, the Storm key passive is getting its damage boosted from 30 to 40%. Seismic Shift, this was an aspect that we think is really cool where your Earth Spike kind of goes in a line and does a bunch of Earth Spikes. Used to have a Kiss Curse mechanic and it no longer does. So before it used to give you this big bonus of way more resource reduction gen and more damage on it. But it added a cooldown, and now it just doesn't add a cooldown, so you can spam it and cast a bunch of Earth Spikes everywhere. It should be a lot more fun. Also, similar to the Sorceress, we're buffing their little bonus cap on their Legendary Paragon nodes. So an example here, they went from 40 to 60%. So you've got Thunderstruck, Earthen Devastation, and Survival Instincts. We've got a little visual there at the bottom node, but you can see that top end of the damage is now 60%, so it's going to be better than PTR. Also, we came out with that new unique I mentioned for Cataclysm. It used to be on the gloves on PTR, which a lot of people, which we agreed with, it kind of felt bad that, you've got the two storm-related uniques on the same slot, and you can't take them together. It was competing with Unsun Aesthetics Wraps. This was the Lightning Storm unique. But now it's going to be on the range slot, so now you can take them both together, so they're not competing with each other anymore. Next is the Rogue. So to be frank, the Rogue we feel like it's in a pretty good spot, so we didn't do as many changes compared to other classes. We did still do a few that I'll mention today, but they got the least changes. The first one is Flurry. So as you know, if you played the PTR, Flurry got some pretty dramatic updates, right? Both of their enhancement and both of their choices that you could pick on the base skill got changed and made a lot better. We saw that, a lot of the output of Flurry was related to doing the mechanics that the enhancement and the advanced Flurry were requiring you to do, like casting it a bunch of times in a row and stuff like that. And we wanted to move some of that damage from those enhancements and things into the base skill. So the enhancement and the advanced Flurry are still going to be pretty potent, but we lowered their damage and instead just juiced the base skill even more. And what this is going to mean is really just that you're going to be more consistently doing that damage, and you're going to be less reliant on doing the stacking mechanics to get it. Next, Wind Force. This one has had a troubled history of just trying to find ways to make it really good and useful. Instead of knocking back enemies when it procs, it's going to knock them down now. So you no longer have to worry about like knocking enemies out of your CC, or you want them to be grouped up next to you and then you're just knocking one of them or a few of them away. Yeah. Now they're just going to go in place. We have a before and after here. Again, a little preview of what we're doing with our uniques. But yeah, Wind Force, you can see some of the things here as a preview. It's going to give you move speed baseline, which is pretty interesting as a stat on a bow. You've got chance for double projectiles for your barrage. You've got a couple passive upgrades there. And then as you can see, the damage went up, but also now it knocks down enemies instead of knocks them back. Last but not least, the Necromancer. We've been hearing a lot of feedback that Blood Necromancer players are a little sad. They just aren't really catching up to the other versions of Necromancer. So we've buffed up a bunch of their tempering recipes and the damage on them. We're also buffing their Legendary Paragon nodes. Here's some here that we did. Bloodbath. This one just makes your overpower damage go up. It's being doubled from 35% to 70%, so that's pretty meaty. Blood begets blood. That damage bonus when you're picking up blood orbs is being doubled, and the maximum amount is being doubled, so you're getting more per stack, and you need less stacks to get to your max damage. So pretty good there. And then last but not least here, Lucky Hit. We've heard a lot of feedback from Necromancer players that, they kind of rely a lot on the Miasma Corpse Explosion to get their Lucky Hit procs off, and that their other skills don't really compete, and so they can't really have fun with Lucky Hit-based builds, more generally. So we just buffed Lucky Hit on a bunch of different skills, so you can see there what all the numbers are. Again, those will be on the patch notes, but really they're just going to be Lucky Hitting more often and getting cool procs more. All right, so next, let's talk about uniques a little bit, right?
I'm super excited about this.
Yeah,
super
excited. So as we promised, in the PTR stream, we said that, we have this kind of different philosophy when it comes to uniques, and we went into detail there. And we updated our uniques coming into Season 5, but we didn't update all of our existing uniques in the game yet. So we've done that pass now. We've updated nearly every unique in the game, and I'm going to do a little bit of a recap of kind of how we thought, and then giving you some examples of what we did. So these updates are fairly dramatic. They're going to be showing you 3 from each class, as well as 3 generic ones, to give you a really meaty idea of the different categories and ways that we thought of updating uniques, and kind of what you can expect for your builds.
Yeah, and I know, and Marcus is going to remind us about this at the end as well. But
you'll be hearing it a lot.
Yeah, but I will say, we are showing 3 here and 3 for every class and 3 generic ones. But every single unique is actually in the patch notes. Yeah. And we have a before and after in the patch notes, so you guys will have easy access. And
you can easily compare the two and see what was the difference.
So after the stream, you'll be able to compare. And so we're just only covering a small amount here. We'll see everything.
Just a little sample serving. The patch notes are absolutely massive, so you'll have a lot to lots to snack on there.
So one of the things is your general power level of unique effects is up, and by unique effects, I want to be clear, that is like the thing at the bottom that is like your, deals 40 to 60% more multiplicative damage or whatever. that number is going to be up on the higher end. So instead of 40 to 60, it'll be 40 to 80 or 40 to 90 or 40 to whatever, right? So that power level is just going to be generally up almost across the board. And then really what we targeted for these updates is the stats on the uniques. So the stats are going to pretty much break every rule that we had in the game before when it comes to being a cool item. So some things that you're going to see, and I think I got an example of most of, if not all of these, but you're going to see uniques that have different inherents compared to other stats. So, your boot inherent, could be something that's not even related to boots or movement anymore. It could be something else. Or sometimes we add more inherent stats. So something that didn't exist before, some items can have 2 inherents instead of just 1, which is a pretty big difference. We have a lot more that have stats that break normal slot rules. So, things like movement speed on bows or cooldown reduction on weapons, stuff like that. Uniques also can now have tempering affixes, right? None of them really did this in Season 4, but now that tempering's in the game and uniques have to compete with these really great tempered items, uniques can have that too. They can also have much higher potential stat values compared to normal items. So, if a normal item has 20 to 40% more damage, a unique can be like, 1 to 300% more damage or whatever, right? And we even do this with the tempered affixes. So, unique can have juiced up versions of tempered affixes that make them solve those problems much quicker. Also, we've introduced a lot of stats that really have powerful effects on them. Sometimes even a single stat on a unique can have the impact that a legendary power normally would on an item as far as what it does to a build. And we'll have a couple examples of that where like a stat on an item is actually giving you a new effect that didn't exist before that you could do.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So again, we're going to be going through 3 examples per class and 3 generics. And I'm going to just try and quickly go through and kind of point out some of the key things that are kind of neat about the items. So we're going to shotgun this a little bit, and you're going to see some cool items. So let's get to it. Woo. Yeah, so first, Penitent Greaves. This is a generic unique. You can see here, this one now has 2 inherents as opposed to 1. Another thing that you can notice is that normally, the inherent, the evade grants more move speed is only for 1 second, and this one is not only has 2 inherents, but it's for 2 seconds. So you'll evade and boost around at crazy sonic speed for a couple seconds, which is pretty neat. And now you can run through enemies while you do it. We've also got some neat stats there like crit chance against chilled enemies and chill potency there that are new to the game. Here, Fists of Fate, this one a lot of people saw a little bit early and they were very happy about. So one thing I think that's kind of cool is that with our uniques, we're really trying to like double and triple down on the fantasy of the item. So, something's about cold or something here, like Fist of Fate is about like RNG to the max. So we're really going hard on like what the theme is. So here you can see like your attack speed can go from 0.1 to 8.7 and everything on it is like has a huge range of what you can roll. So like a greater affixed Fist of Fate could be like a best in slot item for a lot of builds.
The lucky hit chance on this.
Yes, this is the one that people point out that we...
It's just crazy.
I talked with one of the people on our team. I want to shout out Alex on our team who did a lot of this work, and we had a choice here, and we're like, are we going to go crazy or go conservative? I was like, let's just go crazy. Like, this might be insane. It might actually be best in slot and break stuff, but it's really cool. So, yeah, greater affix Fist of Fate there is going to be really cool. Next, the Grandfather. Mythic unique example here. A lot of people had issues with the ignored durability loss, where you would like Masterwork hit that or something, and then you're not getting anything. We just moved that into be a baseline inherent affix now, so you don't have to worry about that, and then replaced it with something useful with a max resource.
And I will note, even in Season 4, because that durability loss was kind of, was actually a hidden stat item, sometimes when you found a greater affixed version of a Grandfather, it would actually apply to that. That is now...
Yeah, that's all gone.
Dunzo.
It's just inherents can't be graded, which is something that we thought of a lot with this. So. Yeah, so now let's go into the classes. Barbarian, this is Battle Trance. This one exists already on live. Probably the 2 big things here. One is, you have 2 different passives now that you get. A lot of times we're adding skill ranks to passives because that's a way to add multiplicative damage or just buffs to really cool effects on a unique via their stats. The other thing to point out here is the actual effect. Before it was giving you increased attack speed to all of your other skills when you had frenzy stacks. Now you're going to be getting damage and attack speed. We heard a lot of feedback from players that they would hit attack speed cap and then this unique wasn't really doing very much for them. So now you're also just going to get damage in addition to making it easier to hit that cap for your other skills. So it's just, more stats, stronger. Next, Reign of the Ravenous. A couple things here. One is it's giving you skill ranks of Rend, which is pretty significant. And remember, that 2 to 3 might not seem so significant, but when you greater affix that and then masterwork it, like your potential of more damage on this goes up very significantly. We're also giving you skill ranks to brawling skills still. Thing to point out here is your Ren's duration. This will also just increase the throughput damage of it, has been doubled, so that's just more damage on Ren in addition to the skill ranks. And then also at the bottom, a small little detail, but before you could only apply that special effect of your brawling skills, applying your Ren's bleed every 4 seconds, and now it's every second. So now if you're able to spam brawling skills, you're just going to be applying Ren bleeds to enemies and stronger Ren bleeds like crazy. So it's a pretty big power boost. Next, the Fields of Crimson. The thing I really want to call out here, I mean, there's a lot of things that are kind of unique and different, but is that one kind of rule that we had with item stats that we're now changing and breaking is we never really buffed things like enhancements or like the AB, like the different choice upgrades that you could do for a skill. This one actually buffs Enhanced Rupture's explosion size. So, normally when you rupture an enemy, it does that explosion. This will make that explosion be way bigger. So it's kind of a neat way that we can manipulate player power via stats. Next, let's move on to the Sorceress. So the Staff of Endless Rage, we actually have a combo here that we're going to show a little video of before and after with this. Fireball builds. The Staff now does some, and the gloves would be doing some unique things to fireballs. One is plus Fireball projectile speed. So this is actually going to make your fireballs fly through the air faster or bounce quicker. And so you'll be able to get through them and they'll, finish their path faster. You've got the tempering recipe now, so it doesn't compete with your chance to cast twice. And you can see there, it goes up to 75% just on that one stat. So it basically almost solves it for you by itself, which is pretty huge. You've got some massive skill ranks to Fireball, so now, again, way more multiplicative damage than before. And then, you can see at the bottom that the upper end of that damage is going up per the same as most of our uniques. And next is combos with the Gloves of the Illuminator. A couple things to kind of gloat on here is the fireball attack speed is going up by a much bigger amount than other classes, or than normal attack speed, on other slots. Also, you get mana when Fireball explodes. I played with this build in, I think it was Season 1, and I constantly ran into mana issues because you always want to spam this as much as you can. So when you think of this stat, you can greater this, you can temp or masterwork this.
And you kind of combine this with the attack speed here, and then you combine it with the projectile speed.
Yeah, and you get a lot more fireballs. Remember, it's every time that it explodes, which when it bounces, it's exploding.
Yeah.
And when you're splitting and getting more from multiple projectiles, you're getting more bounce explosions. So it's giving you a resource engine.
Yeah, you're essentially a fireball machine gun.
Yeah. So we've got a little bit of a Season 4 to Season 5 comparison here of what it looks like. A little video. So in Season 4, you can see, every third cast gives you 3. But Season 5, you're going to randomly get 3, and then sometimes even more when it combines with the double projectile bonus. So you can actually really fill up your screen with fireballs everywhere. And every one of those bounces is giving you mana back to cast more.
That's ludicrous.
So it's pretty cool. It's its own little engine. Next, we've got Blue Rose. Probably the cool thing to point out here is there's a chance for ice spikes to explode twice. So this is also something that we haven't really done, where we have these, we call them sub-powers internally, but these things like Dust Devils or Ice Spikes that are like powers that generate when you cast a skill that are usually through legendaries or uniques. We generally don't manipulate them too heavily like this, but we're going to be experimenting more with that in unique stat affixes. So here, your Ice Spikes can actually like double proc, so they get double explosions, and then any other things that would proc off that would be doubled, which is pretty neat. Next, let's move on to the Druid. So Waxing Gibbous, this is the Shred Druid unique. So what we did here that I want to point out, in addition to the fact that you're getting a bunch of skill ranks to Shred and Toxic Claws, which is a bunch more multiplicative damage, so power level is going up significantly, is Blood Howl grants stealth for a few seconds. So what's really cool about this is, we basically added a new mechanic via a simple item stat in this unique, and it combines with the unique effect, right? So before on live, you kill enemies with Shred, you go into stealth, and then you come out and you guarantee crit. So as you're killing enemies over and over, you're just critting constantly as you go in and out of stealth. But you couldn't really do that against bosses, and you had no other ways to get into stealth. But now we've created an alternative way where if you cast Blood Howl or get the Blood Howl effect in other ways, you'll go into stealth and get this proc, and now you can get this against single bosses or in situations you couldn't before. So we've given you a potential way to create your own engine, which is pretty neat to get those infinite crits. Next, Great Staff of the Crone. I believe we showed this one earlier to people, but just wanted to point out, what was special about this. Storm Strike, chaining to additional targets, things like this. Again, it's a single stat that does something that kind of really changes how the unique works, right? You're gonna get all the different procs and different effects by chaining to more enemies more often. You can also see here that the upper end of that damage that you could get is going up from 150% to 200, so it's just better. And last but not least, we got Storm's Companion. This one I again wanted to highlight another new thing that we're doing, and I want to call it here is the lucky hit chance for the Pack Leader Spirit boon. So normally we never really manipulate class mechanics, but here, this Pack Leader, this isn't like a passive or thing in the skill tree. This is in the Spirit boon, your class mechanic, and this increases that lucky hit chance to get a reset on the cooldowns of all your companion skills. So again, this is something that, normally we don't get to manipulate, and now you'll be able to do, and I think it'll be pretty cool.
We have also decided that Pack Leader is 2 words instead of 1.
Yeah,
Everything's getting updated.
yeah, everything's updated.
Everything's changing.
All right, moving on to the Rogue, Eaglehorn. Let me see, what did I want to... I think just pointing out here, this was about moving the tempered recipe. The penetrating shot projectiles can cast twice. Again, another example of that. We're also giving you a bunch of skill ranks to penetrating shot. Again, this is a way that we're adding just like raw power and damage in ways that aren't in the unique effect. So these stats on these things can be very strong out the gate. And then again, tempering and masterworking just makes these go really, really high. Next, Word of Hakan. This one was a really silly, fun one that we liked. You see there, the one I want to point out, well, one is the ultimate damage. Actually, ultimate skill damage for the Rogue is kind of a premium because they have that Paragon node that makes it turn into multiplicative damage for all your skills. So that's actually pretty meaty. It's also way higher value than normal. Also, the chance for Rain of Arrows waves to cast twice. So normally we don't do, chance to double cast on ultimates, but again, uniques get to break the rules. So now you've got juiced up Rain of Arrows cooldown reduction, they can cast twice, and they hit way harder on the Rain of Arrows themed unique. So again, really trying to bring out the theme and the fantasy of these uniques in the stats, in the effects, to really create something special. And next, Saboteur Signet. I was running this in Season 4. I'm a little sad that I'm going to be doing something else in Season 5, but I loved my stun grenade build. But here you can see a bunch of grenade damage, obvious theme for the grenade build. We're also giving you a lot of your stun grenade size here. And then again, a new affix that kind of creates your own engine. You're getting +1 energy when a stun grenade explodes. And this is each individual grenade, right? So you usually release a cluster of these things. So now, again, I spent a lot of my time in Season 4 trying to solve resource and get ways to cast this a lot to throw out those stun grenades. And now this kind of helps its own engine. Also, one thing to point out here is that it's no longer just a flurry unique. It's casting a core skill, throws stun grenades, so it's a lot more generically applicable. You can use this with all the different core skills, not just flurry. Next, Necromancer. The big one I wanted to point out here, we're going to be showing both of the Blood Surge uniques and how they've been updated and they combo with each other. We have a stat here that Blood Surge drains more times from elites. So to be clear, this is the drain, not the explosion. But the drain does feed into the explosion damage, and there's a lot of synergy and things based on draining enemies. So now, one of the problems that Blood Surge has always had is when you're fighting a single target or a boss, you only drain one enemy, and then you're not getting your explosion damage up. But now you're going to be draining multiple times from those elites, so you're going to be getting more life back and other procs when you drain, but also your explosion will be more significant now against them. Next, Death Speaker's Pendant. This is the other Blood Surge unique. We also added another thing that combines with the other unique where you're getting essence per enemy drained, right? And so now, as you drain enemies for the explosion, you're going to be getting more essence back to cast the skill and spam it more. We're also giving you a bunch of ranks to Blood Surge, which, just makes sense. So, 50%, before masterworking and tempering multiplicative damage is already a giant buff to this. But then also you can see that, the numbers also went up on this as well. So it's just going to be pretty significant.
Can't wait.
And last but not least, Greaves of the Empty Tomb. This is your Sever unique. Lots of stuff to point out here. One is you have multiple inherents. So, normally you can only get 3 max of 8 charges. You get more here. We also had a fun little thing where your evade now leaves behind Desecrated Ground because this is the Desecrated Ground unique. We also have chance for Sever projectiles to cast twice. We have Sever size here. We also give you ranks to Reaper's Pursuit. So this is really about just like moving and grooving, like going around. One thing I want to point out here as well is this new aspect of Creeping Mist that came in, and you can combine this with the Greaves of the Empty Tomb. So this new aspect, we heard that Necro players want mobility, and boy did we give you mobility. So what this does is when you evade first of all, you get evade cooldown reduction, so you evade more. But when you evade during Blood Mist, you travel twice as far, and both when you enter and exit Blood Mist, it resets your evade cooldown. And one of the things that makes this crazy, where we might actually be crazy, and I hope we don't have to revisit this, but we're going to see, is that reset of your evade cooldown counts for all of your charges of evade. So what this means is, and we have a video, is that you can evade 5 times, then evade in Blood Mist, and then evade 5 more times. So see here, then you're evading in Blood Mist, and you're leaving behind that desecrated ground everywhere.
Just
and
skating
just pooping around,
you know?
Yep.
It's like an ice skating rink.
So every time you cast Blood Mist, you're going to be getting 10 evades. It's silly and hilarious, but we're putting it in the game, and I hope we don't regret it.
Necros are going to be zooming.
Yeah, they're going to be zooming with this. So
wow.
Yeah, so that's kind of our preview of our uniques and kind of what's coming into the game. Again, we're pretty excited about it. I think it's going to be pretty cool.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Professor Adam Jackson, take a bow. That is that is incredible.
And again, that's not even everything. There's a lot of stuff coming to other uniques that are at that level.
Patch notes after the stream, we will be showing a comparison of every single unique and their changes from Season 4 to Season 5. So you can go in there and check out all those changes. But that was a great overview of all those changes. That is really, really exciting. This brings us to our Q&A portion of the show. Let's all shift our legs at the same time. So we've been following along in Twitch chat, and we've picked out a bunch of questions, and we're going to kick it off, tossing it over to Mr. Dan Tangway. How do reward choices work in multiplayer parties for Infernal Hordes? Does the leader choose the reward for everyone, or can each player choose?
All right, so yeah, let's talk about this. In the Infernal Hordes, when you're collecting Burning Ether, each individual collects their own Burning Ether. And we did this for the very reason that you're asking questions about. We wanted players to be able to go in and choose the rewards that they want to choose, not necessarily what somebody else gets to first or what the party leader wants. So every individual party member will have their own choice of rewards.
Awesome. Thanks for letting us know.
Marcus, you got to read the names.
Oh my goodness! Did I not say Eldrick?
Eldrick.
I won't forget you. Thank you, Adam. Eldrick, thank you for that question.
Of course, you're going to be a stickler for that.
Yeah, no, it's a great
It's
a great thing to call out because
our ladder behind you.
Because our next question is from Dartless.
Or actually, I think we have a question here on the lower third, which is this one. We've gotten a lot of these questions, so I do want to actually address this one. This is when are we going to hear more about Vessel of Hatred? Because we just had the Spiritborn reveal. We showed off the Spiritborn. I will note that we also are going to be at Gamescom. There was actually some Gamescom news that came out this morning. The Spiritborn will be playable at Gamescom. So if you go to the Xbox booth, you'll be able to play it there. So if you're attending that show, it'll be really awesome. There's actually going to be more news coming out at that time. So of course, tune in. And I will say, like, you guys have only heard a very small
there's a lot
fraction of
the tip of the jungle
of Vessel of Hatred. So we're really excited for Gamescom. So you guys will hear more then, so stay tuned.
Yeah, grab your tickets and come to Gamescom because we'll be there. I'll be super
Yes,
exciting.
exactly. Go to Germany.
Come to
Cologne.
Come to Cologne. There was some people confused in chat. This is a question from Dartless, who was saying, we can temper uniques now. Did I mishear that? Maybe that was a mistake being said. So Adam, if you want to speak
100% clear.
that.
Cannot temper uniques. We want them to be different in that they do not engage with that system, at least for now. But no, you're going to be what I wanted to say or be clarify on is that you can get tempering affixes on uniques. Like they'll just drop with those affixes or whatever, but you can't like go to the blacksmith and manipulate them in that way. You can't temper them.
Gotcha. Cool. Thanks for clarifying that.
Truly unique.
Adam.
Yeah.
It's Doffy has a question for Dan Tangway. Are there any plans to continue iterating on the Infernal Hordes in the future since it's a permanent addition? Are there going to be more boons and banes coming?
Yeah, that's a great question. And yeah, just to reiterate what you had pointed out there, this is an Eternal Realm feature that's going to appear in the game forevermore. And so this is just the first version of it. I mean, you think back to what Helltide was in the base game and how we've iterated on that over time to get it to where it is. We're going to continue investing similar levels of effort into the Infernal Hordes too. And so Boons and Banes is something we heard a lot about feedback during the PTR. And so we absolutely want to make more improvements to the Boons and Banes. And so stay tuned. That's not going to hit in season 5. But we'll figure out where we can get it in future seasons.
Awesome. Great to hear that we're going to continue tinkering on that feature in the seasons to come. I've got a really interesting question from Mano_imp with regards to those... Mano_imp.
We know Mano_imp.
With regards to the damage increase per class resource.
Sure.
They're asking, is the Spiritborn getting 1% damage at 7 points if it's their main stat, just because they have a lower amount of weapons?
Yeah, TBD.
TBD.
I don't want to go into math on Spiritborn yet, but they'll be getting similar treatment to all the other stuff. All of this is kind of evergreen, so.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. Luke Wee. When will we see the overhaul of the Paragon system? Would you consider removing the Paragon limit?
There are going to be changes to Paragon, but we aren't talking about those changes yet.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
TBD.
TBD. Stay tuned. Love this name. Chicken Wing 929.
Love it.
Can the reputation rewards for Season of the Infernal Hordes be earned on only one character or all your seasonal characters?
I believe it's all characters, similar to like what we had for Season 4. So you can actually go back in and just play go through the reputation board and then get another Resplendent Spark.
That's really the question, let's be honest.
Really, that's truly the question. Yes, you can get.
Pretty sure it's
additional-
character specific, and so you can,
yeah.
Nice. Systematic 5K, Adam Jackson. Will our existing uniques be updated with these new unique changes?
Yeah, we get this every round that we update them. It's the same rules as always, which is the unique power. When we update that, is your existing uniques will get that, right? So when we increase your damage range or whatever, that's going to get. But the stats, those are going to be legacy on any items that exist. So you're going to have to refarm your unique to get the new stats that are on them. Awesome. And that's kind of the way that they're going to work going forward, unless we say otherwise.
Yeah, it's just how things work under the hood for when we do changes on them. So.
Yeah.
Nice. Pudge_BP. Are there any plans for clan rework / improvements?
I know there are some changes coming for some social features. We're just not ready to talk about them now, but you guys will hear about them soon.
Awesome. This one's kind of a design philosophy question for Adam Jackson.
Sure.
Evans423 wants to know, how future-proof is this system of static uniques when adding new / better tempering effects and new content?
How future-proof are static uniques when adding new tempers? Let me think. Semi, right? Because I think it is something where if we add new tempers or new affixes or whatever, we will probably need to go back and update uniques that we wanted to apply to and make it work again. Our hope is that these uniques are going to be pretty future-proof in that they're going to be very meaty in the amount of power that they give you. They're also extremely thematic, but I think we do reserve the right. If we find a new idea for existing passive or existing tempering that is introduced to the game and we want to put it on, we can do that. I will say also one thing that we want to do more is just come up with really crazy new ones that aren't even really tempering recipes, but just crazy effects, right? Like Blood Howl grants stealth, or you drain more with your Blood Surge, stuff like that. So I would expect we'll probably be updating them as we go forward. Not probably as dramatically as this all at once, but I foresee this probably likely, yeah.
Nice, yeah. Always tinkering, always updating.
Speaking of which, about tempering, one thing that we forgot to mention, and I know we mentioned it at the PTR stream last time. I'm sorry, my earpiece just keeps falling off. So it looks like I'm scratching my ear, but I'm not. The greater I know there was a lot of feedback after Season 4 regarding tempering and potentially bricking items. And one update that we talked about during the PTR stream, and I want to mention, it wasn't in PTR, but is in Season 5 specifically, is greater affixes will actually get additional temper rerolls on them based on the greater affix quality of what they are. So for like greater affix 1-star ones, you'll end up getting 1 additional temporary roll, and then it grows by how many stars that there are. So that is going in season 5. So and we mentioned it last stream. I just wanted to reiterate it because I actually forgot. We should have mentioned it again.
Sweet. So. Yeah, great to mention that, Adam. That's awesome. We've got a easy one here from Z Weapons. What is a mythic unique? There was a purple item.
Yeah, you can tune into our last stream for it. But yeah, basically what was Uber Uniques is what people call them. It's basically like, the really best items in the game that have like perfect stats and everything. We rebranded them to Mythic Uniques. They now have their own special color, special beam when they drop. They just got a whole treatment to really make them feel like the penultimate items that they
super
are in
juicy.
the game. Yeah,
that's awesome. Sophie0257. Are they going to make it so that we can pre-download the update, or will it be available only on the 6th? That's a great question.
That's a good
Based off feedback from Season 4's launch, the patch will be available to download roughly an hour before Season of the Infernal Hordes launches. So that season goes live at 10 a.m. and roughly an hour before you'll be able to pre-download the patch to get into the game and get ready for the season.
Yeah, I know a lot of people are probably going like, why not multiple days and things like that. We're getting there. We're trying. But no, we got a lot of feedback about how things started immediately on the you could download and actually start the season. And of course, we want to make sure that people can be as prepared as possible. So 1 hour before the actual season starts, you should be able to actually download and get that all prepared. So as soon as the season, the time for the season begin, which is roughly 10 a.m. Pacific on the day of, you can just jump in without needing to download. So
Skull MTV. Hey, great job. Thanks. Any plans to rework masterworking in brackets higher cost, but you can choose upgrades and tempering to make these systems have less RNG?
Nothing to announce at this time. We definitely have heard the feedback. We are starting with the first step of one of the things that we know feels really bad for players. I got how do I say? The more greater affixes you have on an item, the higher stress and investment you have to make it work the way that you want. So we are relaxing that, make it a little bit easier. Another thing that we're thinking about that's a little lighter is the tempering recipes, making them have 3 on average instead of 4 or more. Something that we're talking about moving towards, but nothing of overhauling the system and doing a major change at this time that we have to announce.
Cool. Thanks, Adam. Dan Tangway from Holy Smokes. Their name isn't for Holy Smokes. Their name is.
Their name was Dan. I thought it was Dan Tangway asking a question, and I was like, wait, what?
No. Their name is Frodo Bolson, but all the O's are zeros.
Right.
How does the Infernal Hordes work in groups? Do you need only one compass per group?
So the Infernal Hordes, you only need 1 compass per group in order to be able to get in. Yeah.
Sweet. Just like Nightmare Dungeon sigils. Awesome. Yep. All right, Ravask. Any news on reworked Nightmare Dungeons?
Nothing
for
announce,
today.
Yeah.
Nothing to announce today.
Yeah, nothing to announce today.
Sweet. Green Zombie Studios. Can we expect cool new transmogs in Season 5 from salvaging items?
I am not sure. I know the Season 5 has a lot of new legendary aspects and uniques. There's 50 new legendary aspects and uniques being added into Season 5. So there's a lot of more the back end type of stuff that affects a lot more so on the gameplay, but I'm not exactly sure if there's a ton coming in.
Yeah. So we can actually. There are a couple of new uniques in Hell that you can earn that will have all new looks to them that you can salvage and use as a cosmetic. Yep.
Bam. There you go.
Dan, the savior from Albany.
There you go. Frodo Bolson. Hot pancakes. Are there still plans for rare and magic items? I guess in terms of a rework or changing their functionality in any way.
Yeah, I'd say nothing to announce today for that. Yeah.
Cool. Nice. All right. Checking through Mac and D's. Can we expect skill trees or support gems to change the way skills work?
Can we expect skill trees or support gems to change the way the skill works? I mean, we're not doing any skill tree overhaul right now in Season 5. I do think we have talked a bit on the team about having a desire of the upgrades for skills being more impactful and really impactful. Nothing to announce today, but it is something that is on our radar and I think is cool. I think one example that we talk about a lot on the team is like the kick upgrade for the Barbarian, where normally, you know, when we were originally designing kick, it was this idea that you have this like skill where you hit an enemy and you care about the geometry of the place around you and you want to hit them into the wall and then they get knocked down, take a bunch of damage and all this stuff. That part hasn't really played out, I think, as well because the pace of our game is so fast. But one of the upgrades for kick, especially I remember in the early beta, like way before, maybe it was alpha even, kick, you know, it converts kick from this cooldown-based geometry skill into just a powerhouse where it just spends all your resource and does a buttload of damage to an enemy. And it was like one-shotting world bosses and stuff back then. Like it was hilarious.
I think I remember that.
But the skill still has that upgrade. But I reference that upgrade a lot because I think it's really cool when you can convert a skill to like used to be cooldown and now isn't, or used to be about this utility and now it's just damage, or vice versa, where it like really changes what a skill does. We think it's really cool. It definitely would be a lot of work to like do that to every skill, but I think it's something that's worth talking about and pursuing. So it is on our radar of something to do, but nothing to announce today for it.
Awesome. Yeah. That's really cool. Thanks, Adam.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the end of our Q&A. So I want to give a huge thank you to Adam and Dan for answering all those questions.
Adam squared.
Adam squared, back in
And
action.
Dan.
Hey, just like the PTR stream. You guys are back.
There we go.
Screw those Joes. Got them.
Yeah. Eliminate. No, I'm just kidding.
And that brings us to the end of our Season of the Infernal Hordes developer update stream. Just a few notes before we close out the stream. Just want to take a moment to thank everyone for tuning into our Spiritborn showcase a few weeks back.
Yeah.
It was really cool to show off that new class. It was such a huge moment for the team. So really want to thank you all for coming to check that out. And if you want to play the Spiritborn in person, as Adam mentioned earlier, we are going to be at Gamescom. So get your tickets, come to Gamescom in Cologne, Germany, and just went up through the roof. But speaking of the Spiritborn, you can pre-purchase Vessel of Hatred today and instantly...
Can they hear audio?
Oh, can everybody hear us? Twitch chat? Where did the sound
they
go?
say
Okay, we're good now. We're good now.
Okay,
We're good.
awesome. All right, thank you, chat, for keeping us up to date. Speaking of the Spiritborn, you can pre-purchase Vessel of Hatred today to get instant access to some items in-game before the expansion goes live this October. For Season of the Infernal Hordes, this season goes live on August 6th at 10 a.m. The patch will be available for pre-download roughly an hour before, and 10 a.m. is in Pacific time, for anyone wondering. Patch will be available for pre-download about an hour before the season goes live, so you can get in and get ready for the season to start. The 1.5.0 patch notes are going to go live after this stream for Season 5. So for anything we talked about across the stream today, that'll be available.
And see all the uniques and everything.
Yeah, check out those gifts. They're pretty spiffy. Team worked pretty hard on those. We also had the Season of the Infernal Hordes deep dive blog go live earlier this week, so a ton of information there as well. Stick around after the stream because we're going to be rating some Diablo content creators, so go and check them out. For Adam and Mr. Dan Tanguay and Albany, thank you guys so much for joining us for this developer update stream today.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Really awesome
Thanks,
to go
guys.
through all the changes. And from all of us here, thank you so much to everyone at home for watching and checking out the stream. And we will see you all in Sanctuary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uniques.
Woo!